Hello, everyone. Happy Friday.
Woo.
It's Friday.
It is.
And welcome back to the Wind Down. See, she's ready.
I am very ready for this. We've got
She had that glass up. You saw it.
This is a Menage a Trois, their Silk blend, which has Pinot Noir, Malbec, and what other grape that they've blended together? I'm a huge fan of some Menage a Trois wine. I don't know if you are.
I've not had it.
Their blends are just like the most drinkable, everyday wine.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
It smells good. Tastes good.
Mm-hmm.
Today's episode, we will be talking about browns and suits. It was actually an episode that aired not this week, which we usually talk about things that aired this week, but we're going to go back a week and talk about
back.
Yeah, we're going to go back because we haven't talked about they're new, to ROI TV, and they're new in general, and we haven't talked about their show at all. So we thought it'd be fun to talk about one of their episodes. Plus, they're about building a business in 2022. Well, launching your business in 2022 is what this episode is about. But I feel like through the pandemic, a lot of people pivoted, and a lot of people I know a lot of people in my community decide to, really try and pursue their own business venture.
I think that it's definitely been a function of the pandemic, whether people got laid off or furloughed at the beginning, and it was an opportunity to try something new, or people had decided that what they were doing wasn't sustainable or aligned with their values or what they were looking for in their life.
We had to stay motivated, though.
Yeah.
And push forward in a very, I don't know, it would be easy to kind of fall back on just, the weight of a hard time. And it's interesting how a lot of people kind of switched their mindset and it motivated them to do something maybe that they've always wanted to do, or inspired them to take a leap of faith in a sense. But that's why I think the show is kind of great, because it's going to help people step by step, launch their business.
Yeah, and I think it's, to your point, it's super relevant for this time period. And I think JP and Sal are both very passionate about helping people launch their businesses.
They're so passionate.
I
was watching their show. I was like, I'm going to...
They have a lot of energy.
It's great. A business. I can do it. Now's the time.
You can do it.
I can do it.
Faith. And if you watch Browns and Suits, they will tell you how.
They will tell you how. And they do break it down fairly, I don't know, in a easy to digest manner, which we love here at ROI TV.
Indeed.
So they talked about consultative selling. People buy from people they like. So don't be aggressive, help guide. And I actually love this because my husband will attest. If I enter even a clothing store and someone comes near me, I leave. I'm not an easy customer. If they approach me and are like, "Are you having a nice day?" I don't want to be talked to or guided in any direction as to what. I like to just leave me alone, and I'll get you if I need you.
Interesting. See, I worked retail, and part of the company culture and expectation was that you had to greet somebody within a minute of them hitting your area.
Okay.
So
greeting is fine.
I don't mind it if somebody greets me, but I agree. I'm I don't want help unless I actually want help. You can come and check on me in 5 minutes if I'm still browsing and looking at something, but back off otherwise.
I know. Because you do go in some stores and they're just over your shoulder the whole time, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that would be a nice color on you." And I was like, I wasn't even looking at that. Right. And they'll start bringing you things, and you're like, "This is you don't know me. You don't know what I like. What are you doing now? I feel like I have to try that on, and I don't want to."
Exactly.
But I liked that. I was like, don't be too aggressive, but being kind, yes. A nice greeting. I don't mind that. I don't mind that. They touched on massively, actually, in this episode, how it's easier to connect with consumers because we have all of this access to directly to consumers through social media, which, you know what, it's so funny. I think a lot of people are conflicted with the pros versus the cons of social media, right?
Yeah.
And this, as a business owner, this really is, and they were saying this is the time to start a business because you have this free access to consumers, right?
Yeah. I mean, you definitely, I think the way to really win is by paying for advertising on these social, but you do have access to building a community, which is one of the things that they talk about.
And collecting data.
And making sure that, even 10 years ago, you could run a TV ad or something like that would be way more expensive than running some social ads. And social ads do give you so much more data on where your customers are. So then you can fine tune and hone in on the places you're already winning so that you can really, that's where you're going after. That's where, if you have a sales team,
right,
they go after those places versus spending your money willy-nilly and just kind of throwing it away.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they talked about creating just a Facebook group is essentially creating your own community for your business. It almost becomes your own little control group, for your business, because you have this like one-on-one, almost personal relationship with these people. And you can like ask them and see what's working, what's not working, what's selling, what's not. And as that group grows as well, it's kind of showing you that your business is growing too. I thought that was an interesting point.
I totally agree. And I think one of the other things too is that they touch on, and it's part of the community aspect, but also the social media in general, is that you're able to tell your authentic story about why you started this business, about what you are, about who you are, about what this business can do for your customers that nobody else can.
And how much that actually influences the buyer to want to buy from you.
Right.
Even if like the product maybe isn't exactly what you're needing, if they love you, they're more likely to buy that product.
Yep.
I thought that was that was interesting. That was a good point.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, I see that all the time in my own job. And it really is not only about the product itself, but the story that the brand can tell that really is going to give you longevity in with customers.
I felt that way when I buy things for my daughter, whether it's vitamins or, anything really. When it's, a story where it's like, oh, these are two moms who, have these kids, and like, it just makes you trust the product more, even though I know that's part of the strategy behind selling the product. It has worked on me. I'm here to say it works.
Agreed.
Yeah,
it definitely works.
So they touched on also the importance of building your team and how you are only as strong as your weakest link.
It's always the truth.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what kind of team you're on, but especially if you have your own business, I think it's very true.
Yeah, and just being mindful of your connection, not only with your consumer, but with your, your colleagues and working well together and creating a healthy work environment and, making sure that everybody is on the same page and wanting the same things. All of that, I think, pays off in the end. And they really did touch on that. And I think it is probably quite important.
Yes. And making sure that you're training them properly, that you have a training plan in place so that people feel like they know what they're doing going into the role.
Right.
And especially at a launch time, if you can afford to hire a team, to make sure that they are the best that they can be because they're representing you at a time where you might not have any brand awareness. And so this might be somebody's first opportunity to, like, their first impression of your entire brand, and that could make or break you down the line.
Are everything. Yeah, and that's when your business is probably the most vulnerable, isn't it? It's like, this is the face of the business.
Yes.
Don't mess it up.
But I think they also touched on too, if you are launching a little bit more bare bones where you don't have the opportunity to pay other people to help get into whether it's sales or what the case may be, is to make sure you're spending your money correctly. So it kind of goes back to the advertising, making sure you're analyzing the data with all the social media, with Google and all these other places online. You can really, there's so much data that you get from your customers, people who are coming to visit your website, people who are actually click through on your ads on Facebook. Make sure you're analyzing the data so you're not spending your money in the wrong places.
Right, so you're investing your money where there will be return. And analyzing the data can really help that, because if you're not getting any sales in Michigan.
Right.
Because I'm from Michigan. But you're getting a ton of sales in California.
Right.
Because she's from California.
I'm from California.
Then push your marketing in California, right?
Yep.
It makes sense.
Exactly. And then later on down the line, when you're just rolling in the dough, then you can expand to Michigan and really try and hone in there too.
Yeah, that's when you can start really bugging them in the store and throwing clothes their way. Try this on. Try this on. Try this on.
You want the purple one, I swear.
I know. Leave me alone. All right, we are going to take a quick commercial break and we will be right back to talk about another show that y'all hopefully watched this week on ROI TV. Okie dokie, welcome back to the Wind Down. I was about to say coffee with Kevin Hills, and then I realized, nuh-uh.
We've got a different drink in our hands.
We've got a different drink in our hands right now.
I don't know which one's
Thank
more
goodness.
fun, but I'm very happy to have this in my hand right now.
No, I think this is more fun. I mean, come on. This is more fun.
Okay, all right.
All right, so we're going to be talking about this week's episode from Cunningham Legal, creating the right special needs trust. And we understand this is a very niche topic, but I think it's an important topic because it's, if you are a parent with a child with special needs, I think that securing their financial safety for their future is so important, and understanding the ins and outs of how to do that is complicated. It's not like just getting a regular trust together, which is complicated in itself.
Right.
As we've learned as well.
Yes.
But yeah, they really, this is, as we were saying, it is a dense episode. And we can maybe touch on some things here that stood out to us, but I think it's a really good one for people to watch if you have a loved one with special needs. I think just being aware of the questions to ask and, things like that. It's real.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone knows somebody who is a parent or a loved one, or it's not uncommon.
No, they touch on the fact that over 61 million adults live with a disability.
Yeah.
So that's about 26% of the population has a disability. Not everybody, some have mental, some have physical, there's a mix. So, but 61 million adults in the US today are living with a disability. Not all of them will need a special needs trust because you don't necessarily either qualify for disability. It's called SSDI. There were a lot of acronyms in this episode, which are super important. And again, I agree with Cam.
It's hard to keep up with them sometimes. You have to watch. You have to write them down.
Yeah, and watch the episode because they know what they're talking about.
Yes.
But SSDI is Social Security Disability Insurance. So this is for people who qualify for disability insurance because they probably aren't able to work.
But this is different than a special needs trust.
So correct. But this is why a special needs trust is super important. If you have somebody who qualifies for SSDI or SSI, it means that you need to set up the trust in a way for the special needs person so that they aren't getting too much income at once, because then they might not get their disability insurance through Social Security or other disability means.
Yeah, it's a delicate
delicate, yes, exactly.
Which is why working with a professional honestly would be the way to go with this, because, and they threw out some questions as well, and some of them may seem obvious, but, asking things like, just simply who will care for your loved one, right? And who would be able to take on that level of responsibility? Where will your loved one live? They give a list of questions to ask that you might not think of asking. But if you can check all of those off your list, I think it would give such peace of mind, just knowing that your loved one will be in good hands if anything were to happen to you.
Right. Or when it does, if you're an older parent caring for an adult child.
Because unfortunately,
we do not live forever.
We don't live forever yet. Although we did learn this week that we are living longer.
Yes, much longer than normal, but...
Which means more health complications, which means more expenses. So yes, we are learning a lot every week here on ROI TV, I'm telling you.
Yep.
Oh, I thought they brought up a really good point to remember that once your child turns 18, you will lose the rights to their health information. And if that child is cognitively impaired, you may need to get like a conservatorship prior to their 18th birthday.
Yeah.
So you need to remember that, because that could be a tricky situation if they turn 18 and then you aren't able to communicate with them and, make those changes, after their 18th birthday.
Yeah, but legally you can't really do much after the 18th birthday if you haven't set it up before.
Yes, I thought that was a really good tip.
Yes.
It's good to remember.
One of the other things that they talk about is writing a letter of intent to communicate your loved one's needs. And this is something that it's not so much like a legal document per se, but it is something that you can update and change as their needs evolve.
Yeah.
But it's a letter to the court that really tells, what sort of lifestyle, what the, how your loved one will be best cared for, and those sorts of things, and changes.
And who knows better than you as well. So just putting those details in and updating them.
Updating it is a key. So hopefully, instead of just going to the letter of whatever trust you have in place, it actually goes to the intent as well. And then one of the last tips that Jim also touches on is to make sure that you have your IRAs, 401ks, and TSAs in your living trust. Not most people have them not necessarily included in in your trust, because you can just name a beneficiary in most of those, and they kind of bypass the trust situation. But with a special needs trust, you actually want all that money flowing into the trust, again, because you actually need to be cognizant of the output flow so that your loved one can continue to collect their disability, and get those things that they need to have a good life when you aren't around.
And those are, like, that example is such a prime example of the things that you might not. Why would you know to think of that?
Right.
And so that's, I think the moral of the story here is talk to a professional and get your trust in order. If you have a child or a loved one with special needs and you haven't yet, put together a trust, now is the time.
It is the time. If you have a child, you should have a trust in place regardless, but especially if you have a special needs loved one, it really makes sense. And it might not be your child. It might be your sister that you're taking care of,
any loved
or
one.
a nephew or something. So just make sure that they're taken care of.
Yep. We're looking out for you over here at ROI TV. Always.
And watch the Cunningham Legal episode, because they have a lot of great information in that episode.
They have like all of the information in there, I'm telling you.
And I thought it was super special that Jim, and he was talking to Daniel, and Daniel actually has a special needs child. So he's
not only an expert, but he's like an expert in the life experience as well, which makes you trust sort of his input even more. Yeah. Because he really understands the ins and outs of all of it.
From both a professional and a personal level.
Yes.
So I think that definitely makes a difference.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, thank you so much for joining us on another week of The Wind Down.
The Wind Down.
We will see you next week for another episode. Cheers.
Cheers.